The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondel.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stage Door Show tonight. This is Dave Hondel. I'm so happy to have our guest tonight. Big fan of his. He's a two-time Grammy nominee, American Music Award winner, a two-time Soul Train Award winner, and sold 12 million albums worldwide over his career. He's the original lead vocalist for Color Me Badd. Bryan Abrams, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man.
Absolutely. You know, Bryan, we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but, you know, back when you became famous with your songs and your music back in the late 80s, early 90s, you know, now that we have TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and other avenues for people to get their work out there. What are your thoughts on that and how some people can get instant, you know, fame based on doing something sometimes silly, but there are musicians out there as well that have talent. But, you know, just talk about that social media aspect of things and how it's evolved people's careers in music. And has it helped your career?
There actually was no social media, I don't think, at all. It was just barely starting to get started, and only the like super high tech people and businesses knew how to handle it. It was pretty new. Now it's an awesome thing because it gets people that really don't have the connections or in the big cities, people with great talent, but not, maybe they can't afford to fly to that city or go and do what they want to do. You know, they're able to do it from their own living room. I really think it turned out even for the better when COVID hit, because, you know, nobody could go and do anything in person. And so everyone started doing these virtual shows, virtual meet and greets. Doctors would call and do a Zoom call, so you didn't have to go into the doctor's office. And I think it changed things for the better in that way, especially for people that might be disabled or can't afford to go or maybe don't have a car or whatever. There's a lot of really good things about it. And with anything good, there comes bad, some negative things. It's just, you know, the whole industry's flooded with, so much talent. Like you said earlier, there's some things get through that are goofy and maybe shouldn't have gotten through, but that's just part of the beast, I guess. You know what I'm saying? I think it's worked out for the better. I think it's a really cool type of thing. And, I'm kind of enjoying it. Perfect example, us having this meeting right now. I mean, I'm sitting in my dining room, you know, and it's pretty cool what they're doing these days.
What do you think? You know, I know you have a couple teenage daughters as well. Like, you know, what do you think of like listening to your old music and the music when you started and when you were their age, basically? So what are their thoughts about their dad's career?
They think I'm a boomer. They aren't really interested in any of my music. It's so funny because I'll try to get them to listen to old 60s, 70s, 80s music, and they're afraid to listen to me play them anything because they think I'm out of touch because of my age. But if another young person comes to them and says, hey, play some Steve Miller Band, or hey, play some Pink Floyd, then it's cool. But they don't dare trust me because I'm a big goofball anyway, and they the majority of the time I'm trying to set them up for an embarrassing moment. You know what I'm saying? I love every minute of it. It's so funny because I'm just dad. You know, I always say, color me dad. I'm color me dad now with 2 Ds, obviously extra dad, you know, but it doesn't really affect them much. They love seeing me do positive things like with this movie, the short film. They love seeing that happen, but they just treat me like dad.
Well, let's talk about that short film. I know it's a documentary of the rise of your fame, basically, and you know there's a price to that fame, and you know, and that's another thing. I think that sometimes when people, like, you know, new artists, they want to get famous and they want to get all those listens and all those hits, and you know, there's a price to that. And kind of talk about that price that you pay when you became famous, but also about the documentary and the story that kind of follows your career in your life.
Okay, the name of the film is Flowers in the Addict, the Bryan Abrams Story, and it's a short film. It's basically just me being myself, trying to be as transparent as I can, owning all of my mistakes that I've made that have affected me in a negative way, affected my career, affected my wife, daughters, friends, family. It hits on those things. A person thinks they know what to expect because they're watching MTV or BET like we did when we were kids, but you really have no idea. It's 90% business, 10% entertainment. It's probably the most brutal business I've ever been involved in because of, people say, well, you make really good money, you make a nice chunk of money for doing an hour and a half show. And I said, yeah, but you spend 3 or 4 days in airports to get there, dealing with delays, canceled flights. It can really put a strain on your body, especially when you get older. When you're young, it's fun. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I still enjoy it, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I also didn't know when I got into the business that I was going to be giving up my privacy. I didn't know about, people seeing you and thinking that they know you because of a song they heard you sing, or because of this persona that you have when you're doing your videos and they're promoting, it's really a tough business to be in. And unless you're ready to make some major sacrifices to be away from your loved ones, be away from your family, it's a tough business. Now, it's very rewarding. There's a lot of highs, but there's also a lot of lows. And I just wasn't prepared. I mean, we were from Oklahoma City. I grew up in Oklahoma, and I had no idea what was in store for me.
Yeah, I mean, in the film actually premiered in your hometown of Oklahoma City, correct?
Yes.
And then tomorrow night, I understand there's another showing at the Stockyards City?
Yes, the Rodeo Theater. I think it's the Rodeo Cinema is where it's at. Last night it was at the Harkins in Bricktown. It was really cool to see it on a big screen, because I've never done anything like that. It's a whole different kind of a thing, but I enjoy it. It actually feels really good to be able to be yourself, and just be honest with people, show your vulnerabilities, as opposed to just trying to play this Joe Cool guy that never has any problems. And, I was a really insecure kid. I was a really overweight kid before we ever signed our record deal and put out videos. I was as big as I am now, if not bigger. I was a really big kid. And so while everyone else saw this thin guy with supposedly all this charisma, inside I was still that overweight teenager with all kinds of insecurities, scared, nervous about performing. I was really critical of myself. And I was introduced to alcohol through I knew about alcohol, I had a drink here and there, but I guess the first time that it really had an effect on me that was powerful enough to make me want to start doing it regularly was when my bus driver offered me a hot toddy. I'd lost my voice. I was telling the guys, I can't sing. How am I going to? Because I was singing leads to all these songs. Right. And I didn't know what I was going to do. He said, let me make you a hot toddy. It's hot tea, lemon and honey, and a shot of whiskey. And so I took that hot toddy, man, and it brought my voice back within 5 minutes, and it gave me a little buzz. So I enjoyed it. And the guys were like, man, what get into you? That's the best we've ever heard you sound. And I thought I had found the Holy Grail. Yeah. Thought, wow, I've got a secret now and I know how to do this. And so I just started having these hot toddies instead of warming up for 30 minutes, doing vocal scales and that sort of thing. I just have me a couple of hot toddies and I was ready to go.
Talk about the insecurities, because I know I just read a story that Carson Daly gave about the fact that he still to this day, even on The Voice and on the Today Show, he still goes through anxiety when he's in front of the camera and in front of the audience. And I think people don't realize what performers go through, even though they might be famous or they might be in front of crowds every single night. There's still a sense of, nervousness or butterflies or anxiety that performers go through that I think they hide pretty well. But talk about that, because I think a lot of people don't realize that actually goes on with famous people.
Yeah, some people are just naturals. They maybe don't get nervous. I was always taught by my elders or the people I looked up to, that if you're not a little bit nervous, then you've got something to worry about. Going into a situation overconfident is really not the greatest situation to put yourself in. But mine was different because I had depression even as a child, junior high and high school. I had already seen a doctor about depression. It had a lot to do with my weight, had a lot to do with the fact that I lost my father. He was murdered when I was 2 years old. So I had several stepdads, and a few of them were pretty abusive to my mother and my sister and I, just as far as how we were treated, how we were talked to. So I was a really insecure kid. And so when you go into these things, an interview or a TV show, you want to play that part because of what you've seen. Like when I see Prince or I see Michael Jackson, I'm thinking, I got to be cool like that. I got to act like I have no problems, like I'm perfect, like I'm the most confident guy in the world. And it's really hard to do because the more fame you get, the more you feel pressured to continue to be that way. Yeah. So you start to hide things, you keep things from people. That's where drugs and alcohol come in. It's not always that someone just wants to go party and they just started having too many drinks at the party and they turned into an alcoholic. They might just literally be antisocial, not know how to relate. Or for instance, me, the alcohol helped me in a certain sense focus more because I had really bad anxiety. And so I would forget lyrics to the song I had sang a million times. If I'm panicking, hey man, what are the lyrics to the first verse of All for Love? The song, and it always comes, it falls right into place as soon as you get out there. But it's initially just before you step out on stage. I had really bad anxiety all the time. And it got easier, as tours went on, but it was still always there. And so one thing I would say that people out there listening should know is that we're just regular people. This musician thing is just a job, just like anything else. You have a craft, you get good at it, you want to share it with the world. That doesn't mean you're not going to have bad days and you're not going to have anxieties. You're not going to have insecurities. Who wants to go out on a stage in front of all these people and instead of enjoying the interaction and the music, I'm thinking about what my body looks like, or how, what I'm saying, like how insecure, or what if I hit a note that's a little off? What are people going to think of me? And just it was really tough. Like I said, there was a lot of, I wouldn't trade it for the world, put it that way, because I think God allows us to go through things in order to put us in a place where maybe we can give back and help other people by being able to relate. But it was kind of a tough business to be in.
So at what point did the addiction kind of affect not only your band, but your family as well? And at what point was that rock bottom, as you spoke about on your biography? What was that rock bottom for you?
Man, it was just, the rock bottom for me was just getting to the point where your daughters didn't believe you when you said you were coming home in an hour. They think you're going to leave and not come back for days. Your wife didn't believe you when you say you're not going to take, just there was a trust issue because I would say one thing. And when I got that urge or felt like I needed to drink, rather than go to her and say, hey, can you help me? I'm having some urges. I wanted to play that strong role and I thought I could handle it. And then I would end up out by myself and head into the liquor store or going down to the bar. And then it was off to the races. I didn't drink every day, but I was a binge drinker. So I could go weeks or months without taking a drink. And then once I started, I might drink every day, every hour on the hour for the next 2 weeks until I'm just so sick that I can't do it anymore. You know what I'm saying? There's some really ugly lows in that sort of thing, that the rock bottom for me was just feeling like I had disappointed my family, knowing that they deserved better than what I was giving them. My wife deserved a better husband. My girls deserved better. And my son, I have a son also from my first marriage. Like they deserve a better father. They deserve someone in their lives that can set an example and show them the way, not show them what not to do. So that was my low. The lowest for me was after I had pushed Mark on stage and it made TMZ. And on the way home, all I could think about was what am I going to tell my daughters? How am I going to look them in the eyes? How am I going to look my wife in the eyes? She has friends that know what I do, and this is all over the press. My girls had to go to school that day. What are they doing? That's when it really hit me that I wasn't just harming myself. I was hurting everybody around me, like in a major way. And so that is when I really just decided at any cost, I was going to do whatever it took to stop. I wanted no part of it anymore. And it was such a strong urge that it honestly didn't matter to me whether or not it even cost me the rest of my career. I didn't care about the music at that point. I just wanted to be healthy. I wanted to be sober, and I wanted to be there for my wife and my daughters the way they deserved me to be there.
Talk about the support of your family too. I mean, obviously you're somebody that's in recovery can't do it by themselves. I mean, there's obviously a lot of support that comes along. So talk about the support that you get from your family and your friends.
The support is probably one of the most important things. The only thing more important than that is your discipline and your will to want to get sober. You're told over and over again when you go through treatments and that you've got to do it for yourself. You've got to love yourself enough to want to get sober. And my question to any of them was, well, what if you don't love yourself? What if you don't care about yourself enough to want to get sober? And so what I learned was you do whatever it takes. And so if you have to draw off of someone else's love for you, like my drive was literally my wife and my daughters. I was going to do it for them until I learned how to do it for me, if that makes any sense.
Yep, it does.
You know what I'm saying? Because I just didn't care about myself. I didn't believe in myself. The career was kind of all over the place. I'd kind of gone through some things with the other guys in the group, and I just, we didn't continue to stay friends and be close like we were when we were younger. Fame and greed got in the way. And so I found myself feeling pretty lonely out there, also because I isolated. But my wife, I had actually moved in with my grandmother, and I was really kind of down on my luck. It was actually the same house my father was murdered in.
Oh, wow.
And I seen the movie Leaving Las Vegas, and I thought, I'm going to go to this house. And I literally thought I was just going to drink until I drank myself to death. That really was my plan. I just wanted every day I'd get up and I'd go and I'd pick up something to drink, and I would drink until I passed out. When I woke up, I'd start all over again. So Kim had heard that I was staying with my grandma. We had talked a few times because I reached out and told her I was struggling. And she started coming by, and she would say, "Get all your clothes together, your dirty clothes." And she would take my clothes and she would go and she'd wash them and dry them for me and bring them back. She'd bring me food. And then she started after a while, I could see what she was doing. She was kind of trying to be tricky, or at least I thought she was, because it started out with the clothes and the food. And then it was, hey, my dad might need some help up at the shop. She knew I needed to work. She knew I needed to be busy because, the inside of my head was the most dangerous place for me. So she just really went above and beyond and out of her way to try and help me get back on my feet and start to believe in myself again. It's hard to believe that someone that's had hit records and made money like that and met, these famous people, traveled the world, could get into a place like that. Let me tell you, depression is a hardcore thing. You know what I'm saying? Depression is ugly, and it doesn't matter. You could be right in the middle of some of the biggest opportunities in your life, and if you don't know how to deal with it, or you need medication for it, you're going to struggle. So I would say that definitely was the darkest place, and just slowly she started helping me. She also, over the next few years, because we stayed together, she stayed with me, and I put her through hell. I would leave and be gone for days and not come home, and she would always let me come home. But the one thing that she wouldn't allow me to do is drink in the house. She's like, not going to happen. You start drinking, you got to go. Yeah. And that's understandable. I had to respect that. The other thing that blew my mind was she quit drinking from me. I mean, we drank and partied together when we were youngsters. That's what we did.
Sure.
All our friends ran around on the weekends and, partying and drinking and having fun. When she saw how it was affecting me, she stopped. Never took another drink again, blew my mind. I didn't know how to do that, but she did that for me. I mean, she could have still waited until I went out of town or until I was busy, gone out with her friends and gone and had some drinks and that sort of thing. She didn't do it. She was like, I love you. If this is what needs to happen in order for us to get you better, then this is what I'm going to do. And it's sacrifice. I had people in my life before her that would want you to quit drinking. They thought it was a switch, turn the switch on and off. But yet they would come home, relationships I had, drunk themselves, or coming home with alcohol and want to put it in the fridge, but expecting you to not want it. They didn't understand the disease.
Right.
You know what and what they do is, they weren't obligated to be my babysitter. The guys in the group weren't obligated to babysit me to keep me from drinking. But when you love someone, there's certain precautions that you take. You ask them what they, just like any friend that needed my help. Well, what do you need me to do to make this easier for you, man? And if I had a good friend, I'm going to do that.
Sure.
I didn't have that in my life. So she was it. She was that person that cared about me enough to want to help me. And it took years of stumbling and falling and going back out and getting sober again and going back out just repeatedly. And I just, through all of those times, each time I would learn something new, and I would just take that and keep it. And if that makes any sense, something that helped me get through it or stop or help me keep from it. And I learned through the years. And then at just that last point, I decided to start applying those things that I had learned instead of just, here's the big aha moment for me was, in order for me to get sober, I had to stop being selfish. I had to stop being a narcissistic person because you're caught up in a disease. You don't care how it's going to affect your wife or your daughters or your son or anybody for that matter. You want to drink. You don't want to feel the way you're feeling. So I'm going to go drink or I'm going to go do drugs. Screw everybody else. That's what a narcissist does. How about think about what other people are going through, what you're putting them through? How about before you take that drink, you step outside yourself and try to be selfless and say, I want to do this, but I'm not going to do it because I know it'll hurt this person.
Right.
It'll hurt these people or hurt my kids. That's what I learned. That was probably one of the most valuable things and the secret to sobriety, in my opinion. They tell you in AA that you've got to be of service. You keep busy by helping others, doing things for others. And in the process of helping someone else, you're actually kind of helping yourself because you're keeping, your mind from getting the best of it. So I just learned that whenever I would start feeling weak or like I wanted to do something like that, I'd go do the dishes, or I'd go mow the lawn, or I'd go over to my mother-in-law's house and trim the hedges, or start doing something in those weak moments for someone else.
Productive, right?
Yeah, and if you just give it a little time, 30 minutes, an hour, sometimes it's 5 minutes and it goes away.
Yeah.
It goes away. Guess what? Everybody's happy. You're relieved because you don't feel the guilt of making that mistake and hurting someone again, and it gets easier. I'm probably just rattling on about it, but
no, I mean, it's interesting because I think, people have this false, vision of celebrities that their life is, absolutely perfect in every way, white picket fence, no problems at all. And that's just not the case. Like you said earlier, everybody's a human being. And I think that that's part of the society that we live in is that celebrities have this status that people think that they're untouchable. They're not humans. And that's just not the case. It's everybody's a human being. Right. So the one thing I wanted to ask you though, as you were speaking, is if you could turn back the clock, it doesn't, to the beginning of all this, I mean, what would you change if you could turn back the clock? I know we can't, but what would you have changed if you could change anything?
Oh man, I used to spend so much time trying to figure out what I would change. And I honestly have to say, if I had to go through every one of those things in order to get where I am today, then I wouldn't have changed a thing, because I feel like I learned a lot. And it's helped me relate enough to be able to help some other people. And honestly feel like that's what I was put here for, more so than being a musician and writing music, entertaining. I was put here to go through some things and get back on my feet and learn how to pay it forward. So I honestly wouldn't change anything. If I did change one thing, I would say way back then I would have paid attention to my business. I would have kept an eye on my money. And I would have paid a lot more attention to my business instead of trusting so many people around me that didn't have my best interest at hand.
Well, I was going to ask you, that was going to be my next question is, we have a lot of indie artists that listen. And, one of the things that I always ask, when I have celebrities on is what advice can you give our aspiring artists out there? And because I always say music business is just that, it's a business. And I think people don't realize the business part of it. I think especially when they see dollar signs or they see, somebody's watching them to sign them on a label, but they don't know business. They're signing contracts. And you can look back at any, group that maybe signed a contract that they shouldn't have signed at the time. But when they see dollar signs, and that's the other thing, business, what advice would you give somebody just starting out when it comes to business? I mean, copyright, own your own music, publishing, and that kind of thing.
Never sell your publishing. Always don't trust even a manager necessarily. Hire an attorney, a music law attorney, to go over your contracts and make sure you understand everything in there, because those contracts are probably 9 times out of 10 never going to be in your best interest. They're going to be in someone else's best interest. So I would say pay attention to your business without a doubt. It's okay to trust people. That's what we do as human beings, but be careful. Pay attention to your business. I would also say one of the things that stuck with me the most, why, I don't know, but this just stuck with me. One of my first managers, Miles Sanders, he said, you got to look at it like, he said, you boys are awesome. He said, you're bad. You guys can harmonize. You're in shape. You're running 6 miles a day. He's like, but guess what? And we said, what, Miles? He said, there's a million other young men out there that want this just as bad as you do, that are just as talented as you are. And what's going to set you apart? What's going to set you apart and make you any different? And I asked what? He said that you've got to want it more than they do. You've got to put in more time than they do. If you got to run till your toes bleed, I mean, he was a little extreme, but I kept that with me, because I was like, if that's what's going to set me apart is just determination and focus, and knowing that if this guy is working just as hard as me, I'm going to work even harder. Yeah. I'm going to get even better at my vocals. I'm going to you know what I'm saying? Like, we used to run before we had ever even toured before. We were all runners. I ran between 6 and 8 miles a day, 6 days a week.
Wow.
And so, and sing my songs while I ran. Wow. So I learned how to not get winded. So if you do have choreo, or you don't want to get out of breath while you're singing. So it's not just about the singing; it's about the conditioning. It's physical.
Yeah.
So I really took that and took that to heart. That you just don't forget that there's a million other people out there that want this spot just as bad as you do. And it's up to you to figure out what's going to set you apart from them.
It's funny you should say that, because I talk about this on almost every show with indie artists that I have on the show, and I always ask that question. I always say, what is going to set you apart from all the other millions of people that are streaming music on Spotify? And especially now, I mean, when you started, obviously it was radio play maybe, or, obviously live performing, but now millions of people have the same streaming opportunities as anyone else. So what's going to set you apart? And I get a lot of different answers, but it really is something to think about, because you have to want it more than the other person. Otherwise, you're just going to be another one of these millions of streams that people have the opportunity to come across on Spotify.
There's a lot of people out there that can sing melodies. There's a lot of people out there that can write lyrics, that do what you do again. And so what I learned to do, because that's what I was taught to do, is when you're singing a song, whether it be a love song or whatever it might be, make whoever you're singing that to, when you're putting those vocals down in the studio, make whoever's listening believe every word you're saying. Anybody can just go sing a song and read some lyrics, la 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 la. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like it's your job like capture those people, capture their ear, and make them feel like every word was written for them, or that story was really a true, you know what I'm saying? You got to, for you to pay attention to every word, even the breaths, when you take a breath, how you, I can't think of the word, but you just, every little detail is important. And here's the crazy thing is everybody would always say, think about all these things, but then don't think about it, just sing it.
Yeah.
The best way to do that for me would be to just believe every word and make sure when you're delivering it and putting it down that you're making whoever's listening believe every word. That will set you apart too, because that's what music is all about, is touching someone or influencing them. You know, somebody could be in a bad mood, you can put them in a good mood. Music is magical, in my opinion, and it's so much more than just singing a melody with some lyrics like karaoke. Karaoke's fun, but probably the best ones that go up there and do that are the ones that believe that's their song and they want to deliver it like they wrote every lyric, and they're going to make everybody in that audience believe every word they say. Very important.
Yeah.
Very important. Yeah.
You know, because of you, the song that I actually was listening that with my wife to that song with my wife earlier, and just really enjoyed that song. Just a beautiful song, and your voice is really impeccable, Bryan. I mean, I can't say enough about your soulful voice, and just enjoyed that voice for years. And you know, now that you're you got a family and you're concentrating more on your family life, but I mean, you also do music as well. So tell us what you're working on right now and any projects or anything that we could listen to.
Because of You's on all streaming platforms. It's actually in the film as well, in the end of the film. And I'm actually finishing up a project that I've worked on for years. Like I'm gonna release an album. It'll be my first solo debut, like a real album. The difference is going to be, I'm not going to be singing anything that's inappropriate for your kids to listen to. I just call me old, I guess. I'm turning into my wife and I talk about this all the time. We couldn't believe that the songs we listened to back then, and we thought there was, no big deal, but would we play those songs in front of my daughters?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Uncle Luke and some of these old songs that we used to listen to, and they're great classic songs, but you just come to an age where if you really do want to set an example for your kids, you got to be careful. Yeah. And it got really bad after a lot of years, man. Let's say in this album, I'm trying to keep the romance. I'm trying to keep the crooner that was there before, just like old school vocals. I'm telling some great stories in the lyrics, and more or less they're songs with messages. Yeah. Like as if I was, singing the lyrics that I had written down in my diary or my journal. You know what I'm saying? So it's, I'm really excited about it because there's some really good songs. And I just feel like, gosh, Sean Stockman from Boys to Men, I really look up to him, and I watched him talking about this very thing. A lot of these young guys out there now, they think it's cool to degrade a woman or to act like they really don't care about, anything she's thinking. It's about the money. Let's go back to the crooning days and romance, and just really, let's not lose that, because this is a dying breed. This kind of person or group, they're not going to be doing that anymore if we don't hold on to some of that. So I'm trying to keep the romance in there, and I'm definitely trying to show some maturing and coming of age. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not going to be adult contemporary just yet. I'm not ready for AC. Yeah. But I think it's going to be like a club banging song. I'm embracing my age. Sure. I'm embracing the things that the things in my life, being a family man, and it's still possible to write some fantastic songs, man.
Absolutely.
They don't have to be sexual in order to be great songs. Right. So that's a big change. I have written some of those songs, like in the past, because if I'm inspired to write a song, I got to get it out. But it's kind of like, well, I think I'll pass that off for maybe a younger artist, or maybe I'll just put that one in the closet because I don't know if I want to. You know what I'm saying? I'm making changes as I've gotten sober. I'm a lot more careful about what I want people to think, especially my family. Right. So a journal, basically an album with a journal for the lyrics. And I've got a new nonprofit called Flowers in the Addict that we're finishing up. And I want to use the music as a platform to be able to go out and speak to people. I want to go out and tell the story, talk about addiction and alcoholism and mental health, and how families can try some different things in order to help a loved one get sober. You know, for years, everybody was on this tough love, let them hit their rock bottom. Not always the best idea, because if you were like me and didn't care about yourself enough to want to get sober, you got to be careful how you treat someone like that, because you want them to feel loved. You want them to feel like you care about them. And you can't convey that message by just saying, go live in the street.
Right.
Let's just throw you away. You're an alcoholic or an addict. Let's just throw you in the trash next. You know, and they're human beings. Flowers in the Addict, actually, there's some meaning behind that. Over the years, I've met a lot of alcoholics and addicts, people with eating disorders, like just things that you would think other people would judge you on and just assume that you're not a good person if you struggle with alcoholism. There's a lot of beautiful people out there, man, that because of mental illness or not knowing how to deal with certain struggles in their life, maybe their upbringing, or maybe they got hurt by someone. You know, there's a lot of different reasons people will wind up using. Yeah. And so there's a lot of beautiful things in these people that if you just believe in them long enough and try to just show them some love and show them you believe in them and you care, and watch those things grow. I don't know. It sounds kind of
sometimes that's all it takes, you know. And my family, is struggled with addiction and depression and all that stuff you mentioned. So I think most families deal with some kind of form of mental illness at some point. And I think you're right, though. I mean, I think, you know, just the fact that you're telling somebody they're not a throwaway, that they actually are a human being and you do care about them and love them, I think that's sometimes all they need, is to know that somebody does care about them.
100%.
Well, before we go, I want to ask this question, because I ask this of all my guests, and I, you know, over the years, I know you've dealt with a lot, but what do you want your legacy to be when it's all said and done? What do you want people to think of Bryan Abrams when it's all said and done for you? What do you want your legacy to be?
What I want it to be was that, you know, he said he was going to quit, and he made up his mind and he quit. He went from being a really selfish person, kind of caught up in the wrong things, you know, maybe from his past, but I want people to remember that I turned my life around, and that no matter how bad a person gets or how far gone they get, that they can still turn their lives around. I want people to remember me as a nice guy, as someone that did care about others around him and would take the shirt off his back to help someone else. It's not about, when I was younger, I wanted, you know, the hits. I wanted the plaques and I wanted the money in the bank. And the older you get, the more you start to realize those things aren't what's important. What's important is your family and your loved ones and your friends that care about you and that you care about. And I want to leave a legacy behind that just, I want people to have good thoughts about me when I'm gone. Listen to some of the songs, laugh at how I'm a big dork, man. I'm a big kid. So I'm a goofball who loves to sing. I really take my music seriously, but I think I'm probably still, I'm more immature than my own kids. I'm a get on my nerve. My wife's nerves really bad. I took things lightheartedly, but that I also just really cared about others and wanted to give back, you know?
Well, Bryan, I can't thank you enough for being on my show. You're just an awesome guy, and really appreciate you being so upfront and honest about your past. And again, just, you know, thank you. It's an honor to really have you on my show. And again, I can't thank you enough. So thank you, Bryan.
Thanks for having me anytime, man.